BionicDance is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Now, definition of atheism says there is no God.
What an idiot. His own screen contradicts the definition he's using. I didn't put that up there. That's all him. A person can lack a belief in a god and still be an atheist. It's right there on this chump's screen. And his video is called Dear Atheist, Let's Be Honest. How can anybody be this stupid right out of the gate? Alright, let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers, BionicDance here. Today we've got ourselves a fellow of whom I've never heard, and who makes some pretty chowder-headed arguments regarding being an atheist. If you've been a non-believer for any length of time, you've heard these before, and there's a pretty good chance that, even if you haven't, you've heard them or even made them yourself. I admit I'm mostly going to be making fun of him, because I'm pretty sure arguments are going to bounce right the heck off him, assuming he ever even sees this video. And if any of you watching feel a bit stung by my vicious barbs, don't get offended. Take it as criticism, cause though it may be couched in scorn and ridicule, I stand by the points behind them.
I'm going to start with the supposition of this, is that nobody in this entire world starts out being an atheist.
Which god are babies born believing in? Yours? Someone else's? Babies are born non-believers, which means they're atheists.
It's my point of view that being an atheist stems out of a disappointment in your life.
Ugh, not this hoary old chestnut again. Yes, atheists are just disappointed theists who are angry with God, yada yada. 'Cause nobody ever reaches the conclusion that claims people make about gods are complete crapola intellectually, logically, and unemotionally. Right? Right?
That at some point when you were younger, or at a place in your life where you were questioning, where you were asking the question for the first time, why am I here? What's the purpose of this life? Is there a higher power? Is there a God? At some point in your life, you were asking that question. It might not have been out loud or verbal, but in your heart of hearts, you were saying, what's true? What is it about this life? And at some point you were disappointed because you didn't get an answer that made sense to you.
One thing I find kind of perplexing is that you don't see people making similar arguments towards people from other religions. You were wondering what the meaning of life was, and you got an answer that made sense to you, but it wasn't the answer you should have gotten because it wasn't the answer I like, and that's why you're a member of the wrong religion. You don't see them saying that. It's always directed at non-believers. I find that strange.
Maybe you had a loved one that was close to you that passed away, or some other type of hurt. Maybe somebody was sick. Maybe circumstances in your life just didn't work out, and then you came to the conclusion, if God were real, how could he possibly allow this to take place?
'Cause nobody ever looks at the claims of religions, examines the evidence, and then comes to logical conclusions that religion is bull. Apparently. I will admit, this insistence that God is loving is one of the reasons I don't believe in Christianity. Not because I'm disappointed or angry, but because reality doesn't match the claim. If Christians would say that God is indifferent, or even a complete rat bastard from time to time, it'd be a lot easier to believe in him. It's the claim not matching reality that defeats Christianity, not how we feel about our lives.
So, my position again, for every atheist, at some point you were asking the question, and at some point you came to the conclusion, there is no God.
This guy's definitions are out of date, obviously. Ever since atheism became an acceptable position to hold and not something to be hidden, non-believers have fought against the traditional distinction between atheism and agnosticism, partly on etymological grounds, but also because those definitions made it difficult, or even impossible, to accurately describe one's position. I see no reason to believe there is a God. The descriptions of gods presented to me have all failed the sniff test, and no evidence have led me to believe that a God exists. Thus, I do not believe. However, this is not the wishy-washy maybe yes, maybe no position implied by the traditional definition of agnostic. I'm fairly confident that there is no God, or at least that the gods presented to me as possibilities don't exist. But my mind is open to new evidence and can be changed if the data warrants.
And I'm going to say this, I don't believe it's possible to be an atheist and to be honest at the same time. What do I mean by that? An atheist says there is no God. Well, I would submit to you, do you know everything? Do you know everything that there is to know in this universe?
I don't have to know everything. If there is a God, then he, she, it, or they made their presence known enough on Earth for their fans to write all these books and fight all these wars against people with the temerity to disagree with them, and thus I only have to know what they know in order to say whether a God exists or not, or at least whether that God exists or not. And really, that's enough. I don't need to disprove every god. I only need to disprove the gods whose fan clubs are being super duper obnoxious. Cause that's all I really care about, whether believers are getting all up in my shit.
An honest person would have to say, well, yes, it's possible. I may not believe it, it may not be likely, but it's possible. Why? Because I don't know everything.
Is it possible a God exists? Yeah. Is it your God? No. In fact, if a God exists, that God is obviously so inconsequential and superfluous that a person could be forgiven for taking the position that they don't exist. At most, I might be open to deism or pantheism, but as I see no evidence for either, I believe in neither.
Maybe you've started out this message as an atheist. I say, do you know everything? You say no. Is it possible for God to exist outside of what you know? If you say yes to that question, guess what? You're no longer an atheist. You're now an agnostic.
As I said, this guy's definitions are way out of date. I am an agnostic apistivist atheist. That means I lack sufficient knowledge to say a God exists, I will not use faith to reach conclusions, and therefore I do not believe. The old, deprecated definition of agnostic does not accurately describe this position, which is why it's been changed. Get on board, because that train's left the station.
So, friend, agnostic, you're now saying, God, it's possible that you exist. And that's the starting point.
Zeus, it's possible you exist. Thor, it's possible you exist. Ra, it's possible you exist. Borgax, the stealthy god of thieves, it's possible you exist too. Oh wait, those aren't the gods you meant, are they? Okay, fine. God of the Bible, whatever version this fellow prefers, it's possible you exist. Completely and totally improbable to the point where believing in that particular god legend is thoroughly idiotic, but possible. I suppose. Except not really. I'd take the odds against it to Vegas.
Jesus wants to reveal himself to you.
He'd better get my consent first, or I see a sexual harassment suit in his future. And let's not get into the part where the Lord says, "Come unto me."
But if you say there is no God, you're keeping the door closed. If you admit, well, there's a possibility, then I encourage you, start listening for the knocking that Jesus is doing at the door of your heart.
If anything is knocking at the door to my heart, I don't need Jesus. I need a cardiologist.
Tell me your thoughts, and I'd love to continue this dialogue with you.
Well, now he's just asking for it. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think. 'Cause though it may be couched in scorn and ridicule, I stand behind the point blah. Puh. Yeah, that was ironic. 'Cause though it may be couched. Man, I am never gonna get this right, am I? 'Cause though it may be couched in scorn and ridicule, I stand by the point. Since atheism became I don't know. Not right, no. For their fans to write all these books and fight all these wars against people with the temerity. If there is a God, he, she, it, or they made their presence known enough on Earth for their fans to write all these books and fight all these wars against people. Wars. I swear that last blooper-free video is getting its revenge. For their fans to write all these books and fight all these wars against people with the temerity to get of them.
Every time you rate, an angel loses its wings.